What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the JDW Sports Talk Show, where every fan is welcome. I appreciate you for joining with me today for our NFL Week 18 predictions, picks, giving me my thoughts on some of these spreads. Some of these spreads are really wacky this week because of, teams maybe sitting players, all that wonky stuff. It is a wonky week for spreads, and usually I would just stay away from spreads week 18, but hey, it's up to you. I'm not pulling any money on this week. I wouldn't. I don't even bet anyways. I'm just giving you my thoughts on, whether it's a good idea or not. Maybe give it a shot, but for my analysis. But all right, guys, that's it. Let's get into it. So we actually have 4 divisions that can be that aren't locked up yet. You have the AFC East, the AFC South, the AFC. I think that's it for the AFC North, West, third, and then you have the NFC East. Then you have the NFC South. So both East and South are still up for grabs by, wonky stuff can happen. Eagles and Cowboys both play very easy opponents, but yeah, you never know. The Cardinals that just beat the Eagles, the Cardinals also beat the Cowboys, so it is what it is. But all right, the first matchup of the weekend is the Baltimore Ravens at home taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. One team, the Baltimore Ravens, have the number 1 seed locked up. They're going to rest their starters, rightfully so. They're typically a walking Band-Aid. They typically have the injury bug, so sit them. Don't take any crazy chances. Just get into the playoffs. You have the first round seed, and now you kind of ask yourself, since they have the first seed, if they rest their players this week, they have the bye, so that's 2 weeks off. 1 week off, all right. The bye, you get refreshed. 2 weeks off, do you start getting a little comfortable? It's kind of that rest or rust saying that they go through. But you have the Baltimore Ravens. I have the Baltimore Ravens winning 20-16. Either way, I get it. The Eagles are going to be fighting hard. The Eagles, wrong. Pennsylvania team. I get it. The Steelers are going to be fighting hard. But the tape is out. And you know what? Even if you have the backups in there for the Ravens, they're still going to be a very strong football team. Now, both teams are really well coached. But I do think the Baltimore Ravens is going to be able to do enough. The tape is out. I'm on Mason Rudolph in a couple of games now. Baltimore, the Ravens, they played them quite a bit previously. So I don't think the Ravens should have any problem with him. They should have no problem containing the receiver. Well, if Marlon Humphrey, if those guys sit, maybe they'll have a hard time with some of the receivers, but they do stop the run really well. And really, Pittsburgh, usually they don't run the ball well regardless of who they play. Although, they ran it well last week. I was impressed with them versus the Seahawks, but I think it's going to be tough for them to do it this week versus the Ravens, whether it's all the starters or not. I do have the Baltimore Ravens taking this one, taking the cake, 20-16. I wouldn't really put any money in this game. It's a AFC North game. It's these games are usually very, very close, and especially with the circumstances with the starters being out for the Ravens, and then, with the Steelers, you have all their starters, and you don't really know what you're going to get from them from week to week. They've been very inconsistent, but lately, the last couple weeks, they've been very good. But, when are they going to come back down to earth? Is it going to be now? Are they going to find a way to beat Baltimore? And, if Baltimore wins this game, they're going to go into I think they're going to go into the playoffs and win the division with as the first seed with a 3-3 division record. That's wild. That just goes to show you how competitive the AFC North is with the Baltimore Ravens, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Browns, and the Bengals without Joe Burrow most of the season. Not really as competitive, but Jake Browning was still good at times. But I do have the Baltimore Ravens winning 20-16. Next up, my team, Indianapolis Colts, taking on the Houston Texans. I know my credibility is going to go down immediately, but I don't care. To be honest with you, I think the Colts will win this football game after a long, hard think. At first, I did think the Texans were going to win because, the Colts won the first time around, and, CJ Stroud is better. It seems like this entire football team is just better. It was. Till had a couple of injuries and such. But let's talk about the former Buffalo Bills running backs in this game. Although Zach Moss is questionable, you have Zach Moss and Devin Singletary both balling out on their former teams this season. Both have had really good seasons, and very interesting to see them leaving Buffalo to AFC South teams, and then both of them just playing really well. Speaking of, Devin Singletary has been a very strong running back option for the Texans. He's definitely worthy of note going into this game because the Colts don't have the best run defense. Now they do have Grove, they do have Buckner. When Grove wasn't in there, it really tanked the run defense, but it really wasn't that great with, before Grove was suspended either way. But you do have Buck, you do have Quiddy, you do have guys stepping up. I think they're going to be able to get after CJ Stroud. That's the main reason why CJ Stroud didn't have that great of a week 2 versus the Colts the first time they played it. Well, he didn't look good in the first half. Second half, he really kicked it in a high gear, and he torched the secondary. We barely got out of that one alive. And to be honest with you, the secondary has a little bit more experience. They're going to see Julius Brents this weekend. The defensive line is much more polished. They've been playing much better together. So I think that the defensive line is going to get after CJ Stroud, maybe force him to throw an interception or two, maybe fumble. That would be nice. That extra turnover will make the difference. This Colts defense does have the longest streak in the NFL for at least one takeaway in a game. But I do have the Indianapolis Colts winning 23-21. This could be the game for the coach of the year. D'Amico Ryan, Shane Steichen, either one I can see. I do think Kevin Stefanski, Dan Campbell, and those guys are going to be throwing that conversation as well. But this might very well be the one for coach of the year. Whoever wins this going to win coach of the year, of course. But Gardner Minshew, if he it depends. Is he going to turn the ball over? And the Colts do have 3 other 5 top offensive linemen questionable. It's kind of like a similar situation with the Texans earlier on in the season in week 2. But they're all questionable. Braden Smith should play. I'm confident Quentin Nelson will play. Ryan Kelly, I am not sure. I hope he plays. He's been a really good center this year so far. But I do have the Colts taking the cake. I do think Jonathan Taylor's going to make the extra play on the ground. I do think Gardner Minshew is going to take care of the football. Although don't underestimate this Texans defense. They are playmakers, man. And that's usually would spell trouble for a quarterback like Gardner Minshew. Those happy feet when he gets pressured, happy feet, overthrow, underthrow. This is an opportunistic defense. If you do not take care of the football, you will not win the game. But considering they have not looked the same without Tank Dell, considering they have not looked the same since having some injuries, I'm going to trust the Colts to make that extra play. I'm going to trust that Colts offensive line a little more, even if they have 1 or 2 guys out. If all 3 of the guys are out, then it's really going to be an issue. Then I'll probably switch my pick to the Texans. But I do think that Jonathan Greener will be back this week, though, with a few guys. But although their whole injury risk is questionable, but I do have the Indianapolis Colts coming out on top, 23-21 over the Houston Texans. It will be an awesome game. Really a coin flip, go either way. But I'm taking the Colts. Are at home. This one, I'm going to say that they sweep it and they find their ways. And they find themselves in the playoffs. Now, I don't think the Colts are as good as record. Absolutely not. They have had a cakewalk of a schedule, but let's be honest. They put themselves in a good spot. They took advantage. But let's not, pretend that the schedule was hard. It wasn't. It was one of the easiest schedules I've seen in a while. But, all right, next matchup, you have the Cincinnati Bengals at home taking on the Cleveland Browns. So, Bengals, I had to keep on looking at this line when making these graphics. I do it the old-fashioned way, right? I get a notebook and I write down scores and I write down all that stuff, and then I take it over to Photoshop, and I don't do it in Google Docs or anything. I do it right in my notebook. I like doing it that way. But I have to keep I had to keep going back to Vegas. I was like, did I put the wrong line down? Bengals favored by a touchdown, and I guess it's because the Browns are expected to sit their players, which fine. But Kevin Stefanski, man, how much of a difference is it going to make at this point? Kevin Stefanski has coached the Cleveland Browns, Cleveland Browns on 2 crutches and an ACL tear. That was a horrible analogy, but Kevin Stefanski is really, really having this team playing at a high level. It doesn't matter who's in there, and I think the Browns are going to win this one no matter what. Even if some of their starters are out there, they have depth, man. They have depth on the offensive line. They have depth on the defensive line. They have some good corners. I think the Browns will be absolutely fine. Now, will this game be as high scoring as this? Maybe not, but I'm just kind of thinking, maybe it's not this high scoring, but you never know. I can see it's the last game of the year. Crazy things happen. It's an AFC North division game. Crazy things happen. Last week we didn't think that the Browns and the Jets would have been a high scoring game. Look at that game. What it had like 51 points in the first, and the first half alone was wild. But I do think the Cleveland Browns are going to take this one. They're going to further cement themselves in a really good position in the AFC. They already have the 5th seed locked up. I'm pretty sure they can't lose it. But, yeah, man, the Cleveland Browns, really good football team. I think they're going to win this one, really well coached, and I think that's going to be the difference. So I know I'm not saying Zach Taylor is not good or anything, but we all know that the Bengals aren't the Bengals we know and love with, Joe Burrow. They're not the Joe Burrow Bengals, so Jake Browning has had himself a few nice games, but he has come down to earth recently. So I think that Cleveland Browns defense, whether it's backups, whether it's a couple starters in there or not, I think the Browns defense is going to have a nice day. I think they're going to do a good job. I have the Cleveland Browns winning 27-20. Next matchup, we have the Detroit Lions at home taking on the Minnesota Vikings. The Lions have a shot to get the number 2 seed. That is if the Cowboys and Eagles lose, and as long as the Lions take care of business, then the Lions could take the 2nd seed. But I highly doubt that the Cowboys lose to the New York Football Giants, and I highly doubt the Philadelphia Eagles. No, that the Cowboys lose to the Commanders and the Eagles lose to the Giants. I highly doubt both of those happen, but I mean, the Cardinals did beat the Eagles and the Cowboys. I mean, we've seen crazy stuff this season. It's been wild. There hasn't been that one team that's been dominant. It's been a really weird football season, but very competitive at that, to be honest. Except for the tippy top, you have the Niners and the Ravens, but the Ravens, yikes, they really put the Niners to bed. But Lions at home taking on the Minnesota Vikings, looking for a number 2 seed. Will the Lions play their starters? Will they not? I think that's going to be a game time decision. Then again, they're playing in the early window, so they're not going to have the Cowboys and the Giants game to go off of. Like, they don't have that luxury of seeing it and then saying, "Oh, okay, we could pull our starters." No. I don't think Dan Campbell's going to sit them anyways. I think Dan Campbell wants them to play it. I don't think he wants them to sit, and they earned this opportunity, and he wants them to really get that season finale, going to the playoffs and playing hard. I don't think Dan Campbell's the guy to sit there to sit his players in this week. It's a divisional game. I mean, yeah, it's a divisional game, but still, I don't see Dan Campbell really sitting his guys until maybe the second half. Maybe he plays them at least a half, but I think we'll see limited action from them, especially if they gain an early lead. But Jared Goff, how will he do? How will he get the job done? I mean, he's got some nice weapons, Amon-Ra, but as we all know, the defensive coordinator, I'm completely blanking, former Dolphins head coach, Brian Flores, his dog when calling defensive plays. You never know what he's going to call, and I think Jared Goff is really going to struggle versus something like that, as he did, early. No, he didn't really struggle too much earlier on. I mean, the Vikings do call a lot of man, like the blitz, like do a lot of different crazy things. And I think as long as Jared Goff can drop back, use his experience, and just get the ball where it needs to be, the Lions should be fine. They should be able to run the ball, but the Vikings, they're decent at stopping the run. They're not great, but they're decent. But I do have the Detroit Lions winning 34-20, as long as the starters play. I mean, should they win either way? I mean, the Packers did just embarrass the Vikings as well, but I do think the Lions are going to take this one 34-20 over the Jaron Hall led. I think it's still Jaron Hall, right? Or is it, yeah, I think they benched Nick Mullins and they put Jaron Hall in. I mean, neither have looked great, but hey, I'm taking the Lions, a more talented team, the much better football team. They're hungry. They want to get that extra win at the end of the season. I know Dan Campbell's going to get them fired up just for the playoffs, just to get this, to get the ball rolling and say, hey, yeah, we're here. They had a really good defensive outing versus the Cowboys, really impressive. Although they did really struggle versus CeeDee Lamb, very good route runner. And, so to speak, the next week you're playing Justin Jefferson, who's an amazing route runner himself, not as good as adjusting or not really as, athletic or, shifty as CeeDee Lamb is, I don't think. But, I mean, he's still up there. He's still amazing. He's one of the best in the league for a reason. But, the Lions could struggle with him. Jordan Addison's a goon. Jordan Addison's a dog. How will they handle him? I don't know, but considering the quarterback situation, all the quarterback has to do is kind of throw it up to Addison, throw it deep to him because Addison will get open, or just throw it up to Justin Jefferson. But I do the Detroit Lions 34-20. 3-point line. It depends. If the game day comes and they sit their starters, I wouldn't put any money on it, but then at the same time you kind of don't know until it's late. Like I said, week 18, very weird stuff happens. All right, next matchup is a very big matchup for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Got to win this one. Mike Vrabel's going to be hungry. They're traveling to Tennessee, and Mike Vrabel and they're going to be hungry for a spoiler, for an upset. It's not going to happen. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they're going to get it going this week. They got it going last week, and they're only going to get better with Trevor Lawrence coming back. They should be fine. Maybe Trevor Lawrence isn't 100%. He really at that, he has not been a great quarterback, but better than Beathard, honestly. But yeah, I do have the Jaguars win 23-20. They should be able to run the ball pretty well. Although the Titans do have a decent defense. It's a very underrated defense. The Jaguars should be just fine. So I got the Jaguars 23-20 over the Tennessee Titans, clinching the AFC South title. Next matchup, you have the New England Patriots over the New York Jets. Good old NFC East matchup. Good old NFC East rivalry. What is my starting today? I apologize, but the Patriots 2016. Yeah, this is probably going to be a pretty crappy game. Well, there's going to be quite a few games that are going to are just gonna be crappy. I'm like, ugh, really, do we have to watch these ones week 18? But except for the fans of those teams, it's bittersweet. It's their last game. They're excited to watch them and realize last game. Yeah, I know the feeling. But looking at the game, the New England Patriots have been playing better lately, and I don't think they're going to just get swept by the New York Jets. I mean, they've been better at stopping the run. Their defense has played really well, and I think that's going to halt this Jets defense. Maybe the Jets get a defensive TD, and that's where a TD comes from. But I do have the Patriots squeezing this one out 20-16. I think Bailey Zappi does enough. He has a couple of weapons. They've just been playing better as of late, like a better football team and more competent football team. And I think they have it versus the Jets. All right, so the next up, you have the New Orleans Saints at home taking on the Atlanta Falcons. I do have the Atlanta Falcons taking the upset over the New Orleans Saints, and whoever wins this game, if the Bucs lose to the Panthers, whoever wins this game will win the division title. So pretty big game as long as the Bucs lose, because I think the only way for the Saints and the Falcons actually get into the playoffs is to win a division. So whoever wins has a chance to be in. Whoever loses, you're eliminated. But I do think the Atlanta Falcons are going to pull off the upset here. And I say that because the Saints, it's going to be a full circle story. The Saints have struggled in the red zone. They have struggled in important situations. And I think this is where it's going to come back to really bite them in the butt when it matters most. Derek Carr struggling to make big plays on third down, struggling to make big plays, and all that kind of stuff. Like, it feels like it's just simple things that the Raiders don't do right. Like, they do some of the big things right, but the simple things, they add up, man. And in a big game like this where you have two hungry football teams, you have a Taylor Heineke who has some nice weapons. He's got Drake London who can bail him out. He's got Kyle Pitts who could bail him out once in a while. He's got some really good pieces around him, man. And the offense line's all right. You have some really good running backs. I really think that the Falcons are going to find a way to upset the Saints here and eliminate the Saints and give themselves an opportunity to win the NFC South. So you're probably saying, oh, you're going to trust Taylor Heineke and them and this, yeah, over the New Orleans Saints, but the Saints just haven't executed. Like, they always play sloppy, and they've gotten away with it a lot this season, even versus the Rams, man. Like, that game may look closer than it was due to the score, but it really wasn't, So, I just think that's going to come to bite them in the butt at the end of the season here. I'm taking the Falcons 26-23 with the New Orleans Saints. I could be very wrong this weekend, and I don't mind being clowned. Bring it on, please. Bring it on. All right, next up, you have the Carolina Panthers at home taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the Panthers, they could be in for a spoiler. You know that they're at home. The Bucs have to travel to Carolina. The Panthers are hungry for an upset. They're going to want to knock their division rival out. But because if the Bucs lose this, they won't win the division. So it'd be a bittersweet moment for the Panthers as well, because they're not going to make it. But it'd be nice to see their division rival not making it, and they're the reason being knocked out. But I had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers barely squeezing by. It's a trap game. The Buccaneers have played amazing football. They beat up on the Jaguars really well. They beat up on a couple of teams. They just been a really good football team. Baker Mayfield's been playing such great December football. It's awesome to see. Really awesome to see a player turn around his career mentally and just performance-wise, really awesome. He has some great weapons, and I think that's going to be just enough. I think having Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, even, Cade Otton has been a beast. I think one of those guys, that's going to be all the difference in the world. And Baker Mayfield making that one clutch throw. Baker Mayfield's been clutch all year long. I can see this being a really, really close game, and the Buccaneers barely just scraping by and taking the cake with the game-winning field goal. 27-26. Tampa Bay Buccaneers just have a little bit more on that defense, man. Todd Bowles is going to give Bryce Young some problems. It's not going to be Bryce Young's fault. Just he's not going to have time, not going to be able to read the field, and receivers not going to get open. Adam Thielen is really the only reliable guy week in and week out, and he's older. You can't rely on him for forever. So poor Bryce Young, poor offensive line, going to get hit a lot. Not really going to have open receivers. Going to be confused a lot. Not necessarily confused. There's just nothing that you can really do about it, But yeah, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking the upset, or avoiding the upset in Carolina to clinch a NFC South title. Next up, you have the Green Bay Packers at home taking on the Chicago Bears. So let me tell you one reason why I picked the Chicago Bears as a run defense for the that's a run defense of the Green Bay Packers. It's a horrible run defense. It's the 28th, 29th in the league. It's one of the worst. It's one of the worst NFL has to offer. And you're going up against Justin Fields and a really good run blocking offensive line. That's the Bears offensive line is one of the most polar offensive lines I've ever seen. Like, they're so good at run blocking. Pass blocking, it's kind of a different story, but I do have the Green Bay Packers taking an L here and getting out of the playoffs, getting eliminated, and the Chicago Bears getting sweet revenge after that week 1 embarrassment. But is this really going to say that Justin Fields is the answer? I don't know. We always have this conversation at the beginning of every year, at the end of year, for Justin Fields, making the excuses for him, man. And I understand the situation has been great, and he's looked better lately, but at the beginning of every season, at the first half of every season, he seems to just crap the bed, man. And, you kind of need a quarterback that can do it all season long, that could hit the ground running. And if he could do that next year, if he is with Chicago, he's the answer. I could very well be wrong. I've been impressed with him lately. I've seen a lot of great things, a lot of drops, a lot of, bad receiver play and such. But Justin Fields has a lot of upside. It's just, he's still not really seeing the field great. He's really athletic. And there are just some things about, his accuracy. Once in a while he seals, but every player does that. But I really think Justin Fields is gonna have a field day against the or against the Packers and be like, yeah, who owns you now? If you know the reference, you know the reference. But I have the Bears winning at 31-27, wouldn't touch the line. Honestly, wouldn't touch the line in any of these games, to be honest with you. If there's an upset to throw money on, I actually would do it here because Packers being favored by 3. I wouldn't do it there. I'm pretty confident the Bears winning that. It depends what kind of Jordan Love you're going to get, but Bears defense has been really good as well. All right, next up, you have the Las Vegas Raiders taking on the Denver Broncos. I think this is going to be one of those games. Oh, it looks like I'm missing the I. I missed the edit of the I. That's funny, but I do have the Denver Broncos win this one. They're just going to get one of those turnovers, one of their turnovers that have, that they have gotten during that winning streak, that big winning streak. They got those turnovers. They look like a really good football team. Looking like they're going to make the playoffs. A really hot football team. And not being the case, Jarrett Stidham, former Las Vegas Raider, going to get revenge on his team. Maybe we'll see. But I do think that the Broncos are just going to get the extra turnover. I think they're more capable of getting the extra turnover. And that's why I have the Broncos win this one. I think they're going to be able to run the ball well. Now, the Raiders, they can run the ball really well. And the Denver Broncos don't have a good run defense at all. But I just think that the extra turnover by the Broncos defense is going to be the difference in this game. I have Broncos 21-20. Next up, at home, you have the New York Football Giants taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a game where you look at, it's like a couple weeks ago, the Giants had a shot. They were in it. But, usually when a team, much lesser of a talent, goes up against a team like the Eagles or, just a juggernaut of a team, usually a divisional opponent, but, and you're close the first time, you don't end up doing it. Like, you didn't really outplay them. Like, kind of like the Bears and Lions situation. Like, usually the second time around, the game isn't that close, and it's, you're not going to win that game. But the Bears kind of defeated the odds there, kind of defeated the trend there. But typically, when you turn around and play such a great team, the Eagles have been tough lately. They're a very talented football team. Coaching has been an issue. Offense lacks creativity. It just shows on 2nd and 1. They just do the push to get it. They have no creativity. It's really, really tough to stop and credit to them. But this is just going to be one of those games, it's going to turn around and be like, the Giants are going to get a couple of garbage time touchdowns, I think. And I think the Eagles are going to insert their dominance in this game and not to have too much of an issue. I am 100% certain that the Eagles win by more than a touchdown. So I would absolutely, take it. I would take it, but the Eagles should have no problem in this game. They only had problems in the first one a little bit, kind of kept them in it. That's kind of been their problem all season long. They kind of keep teams in the game. They've been getting away with it a lot. Really haven't had that dominating performance. They had it versus the Vikings in week 2. That was kind of like the most dominating performance they've had in my eyes. Then when they go up to some really good teams, like even versus the Cowboys the first time, they were very fortunate. They were outperformed by quite a bit that entire game. But back to this game. The Giants, the first time around, they had their shot. They didn't. Usually when a team comes around the second time playing a much better football team, especially division around, it just doesn't work out the second time around. It's usually much, much worse. You had your chance the first time, not going to get it this time. I do have the Philadelphia Eagles pulling it out 34-22. Number 5, you had the Arizona Cardinals and the Seattle Seahawks. So This is an upset for me. I have the Cardinals and Kyler Murray running all over the Seahawks defense. I have this being the game where the Geno Smith era is just going to be over. Seahawks fans and the entire fan base, the entire NFL is going to look at this game and be like, yeah, the Geno Smith era is over. It's done. The experiment's done. Maybe let's start looking for a quarterback in the draft, because you know what? Geno Smith is not the long-term answer. You paid him short. I mean, you gave him a decent contract, but he's not the long-term answer. He really isn't. So you got to start looking for that next guy. He's just not, the offense is just not fundamentally sound on third down, and in the most important moments it seems like it's down and not playing at its best, and that's kind of when you need it to play at its best. But I do have the Arizona Cardinals. I have Kyler Murray and them making the extra play. It's an upset. I don't think the Cardinals are a better team than the Seahawks, but it's an upset. It's a divisional game. It's the last game of the season, and the Cardinals are going to want to play some spoilers. So I have the Cardinals defeating Seattle Seahawks 26-19, and Seahawks run defense, you're allowing Najee Harris running like that. You got some issues. So, and the Steelers, you got some issues. So, moving on to the next one. Another yucky game. Not going to have Patrick Mahomes. Not going to have the Chiefs starters. So, I think that just tells you all you need to know. Even with the starters, the Chiefs offense has been pretty horrible. So, I have the Chargers barely squeaking it out here with the last-second field goal. Or, the Chargers, I wouldn't put any money on this game. That's a big line for a game that's probably not going to have almost no scoring. I get it. A lot of the stars are out for the Chiefs and haven't been good with them. Nah. This is that's a game on the bottom of your watch list for this weekend. Next up, you have the San Francisco 49ers at home taking on the Los Angeles Rams. Niners sitting their starters. Rams resting Matthew Stafford. Otherwise it would be a more interesting game, but I think the Niners are still going to come out on top. They have really good depth, and coaching is really good on both sides, but Kyle Shanahan just is special at getting greatness out of his depth players and getting the best out of his depth players. Sean McVay is good at that too, but I feel like Kyle Shanahan is just a king of that, and I think that's going to show in this game. They're going to win 24-20. Wouldn't touch that line. Probably going to be a defensive battle, maybe a sloppy battle, especially with Carson Wentz playing. Carson Wentz maybe throws a pick six, fumbles. He's prone to mistakes, so you kind of count on that if you bet on that line for the Niners. Next up, you have the Commanders at home taking on the Cowboys. Cowboys, I think the Commanders are going to put up 17 points, if that, and I think it's all going to be garbage time. I don't even know if they're going to score much. The Cowboys defense, they play a lot of man coverage, and the Commanders do have a lot of good receivers. Terry, Curtis, Jahan has kind of been disappointing, but they do have a nice receiving room, and I think they have De'Ami Brown too, who's been all right. They have a good receiving core. They can get open, but the quarterback situation isn't really there. Sam Howell. I don't even know who's starting at this point, because I thought I heard Jacoby Brissett was hurt, and I think he ended up playing. I don't even remember, man. It was tough, but I do have the Washington Commanders taking it at home over the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys are going to get pressure all day long. If Dallas loses this one, we're going to have big issues, just like if the Eagles lose the Giants. Imagine if the Eagles lose the Giants and the Cowboys lose the Commanders. That will be quite the Week 18. But I do have the Dallas Cowboys taking care of business. 13.5-point spread. I'm confident they're going to be playing the starters. They want that one spot. They don't want to take any chances with the Eagles right there playing the Giants. I have the Cowboys winning 34-17. CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott, Jake Ferguson going to rip them apart. All right, next up, you have the Miami Dolphins, a Sunday night football game for the AFC East. You have the Miami Dolphins, the Buffalo Bills. What's up for grabs? A division title and the number 2 overall seed. So the Miami Dolphins, man, listen. This team is really beat up. That's my big issue. I think 27 may be a little much, but they're at home, and they usually play much better football at home. But my issue is Tyreek Hill is still, he hasn't been the same since his high ankle sprain, which it takes a while to get fully healthy from that. Jalen Waddle, he's dealing with high ankle sprain. You have a lot of injuries to two of your top targets. Your defense is very injured. You're gonna have a hard time. No Bradley Chubb. No Jalen Phillips. He went out earlier in the year, and I think that's going to be a difference in this game. It's been tough for the Dolphins with injuries. They did do a very good job versus the Cowboys. The Bills kind of killed the Cowboys, but I don't really make predictions based off that. I would be comfortable with the Bills winning by at least 3 points or more, just because of the injuries to the Dolphins. That's the biggest thing that's sucking for the Dolphins. So if the Dolphins can win this one, watch out, man. I think this is a team that has a chip on their shoulder after that loss versus the Ravens. I could see that saying, hey, we have injuries. Let's go out and play as hard as we can. But sometimes in the NFL, even as hard as you can, sometimes it's just not enough. Josh Allen I think he's going to light it up. He's going to have a really good day. And unfortunately, Dolphins still not going to clinch their first division title since, 08, 09. Unfortunately, I want to see them win. I want to see the Dolphins win it so bad. It's just, you haven't seen them win it in so long. It'd be nice too, but I don't know. Tough matchup this weekend. A lot of injuries, but we'll see. It's a big game, really. How are they going to overcome adversity? I think that's going to show a lot. But, hey, guys, that's it. That's all I got from me. Thank you for tuning into the JDW Sports Talk Show, where your fans welcome. If you enjoy this episode, if you enjoyed this weekly predictions, this is the last one. Last one. So I appreciate you guys. Hope you guys enjoy. Make sure to like, subscribe, put the post notification bell on so you don't miss any future videos. Boy, am I going to miss this. It's the happiest yet the saddest. It's such a bittersweet moment. I'll see you guys next year for our 2024 regular season playoff or regular season predictions. They're gone. Peace out.